Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar, which is all about understand the psychosocial hazards and mental health for your workplace. So I have this wonderful person next to me, Maya Trefesca, who's been with us for coming up, 7 years plus?
Yep.
Yeah. Who is my expert in when it comes to this topic. And we're just waiting for a few more people to join. We've got 40 odd people registered for this webinar, so we're very excited. And it's a very hot topic at the moment in relation to what everyone needs to know about this. So as we get into the webinar, let me go through a few slides. So first of all, our session today, what we're going to cover is we're going to cover understanding psychosocial hazards and mental health, your obligations as an employer, how to comply with these changes in your business, and most importantly, the importance of record keeping. So making sure that we're keeping records of any situation that happens. And we always talk about the good, the bad, the ugly. If it ain't written down, it didn't happen. So May will go through that very shortly. For those that don't know me, my name is Colin Wilson. I'm the Director of Key Business Advisors. We've been operating, it's now coming up to 16 years very soon, which we're very excited about. And, we're all about, business strategy and growth, people and culture, making sure that you've got, good HR compliance in place, and we support, and leadership and sales training. We love what we do. This is not my company, it's our company. There's a team of nearly 12 people in this business, and we service so many clients throughout Australia. So introduce yourself, Maya.
So hello everyone, I'm Maya, part of the KBA team for the last 7 years. Come from all sorts of HR background, but really specialising in small business and to medium business. So going through from a compliance perspective, but also in the health and wellbeing perspective as well. So hopefully you learn a lot from today, and we'll get started.
We'll get started, yes. Today's session is being recorded and will be up on our website within 48 hours. I just want to do a bit of a sound check. So everyone that's on the webinar, could you just give me, can you hear me? You can go into the chat and put a message in the chat. Raise your hand. Yep, beautiful. So thank you very much. That is awesome. All right. So, we always start with this, and there's a reason for it. And what builds great culture in a business for me is having really good mission and purpose, and your values. But our mission is about taking business good to great. There are plenty of good businesses out there, but we want them to be great. A great business, great culture, and everything that actually runs with it. And we have a methodology that we go into clients and help them go from good to great. And our purpose is to take our customers on a journey through all aspects of employee engagement and performance, because we know if we've got great engagement in a company, then the performance automatically happens, those results that everyone's looking for. These are the key pillars of our business, and if anyone wants any help, you can look up our website and check out what we actually what we do. But thank you very much for being part of this webinar this afternoon, and I'm going to introduce the first topic. So Maya, the first topic is understanding psychosocial hazards and mental health. So can you take us through this, please?
Yes, absolutely. So, and a lot of what we've talked about today, as you can see, as a business, we've also tried to educate everyone that's online today, and those who will be watching later, just more about the mission, vision, values. We talk about the purposes. So really, it all flows into what we're going to go through today. So understanding the first slide would be one of the things that we want to talk about. So I've got here organisation A and organisation B, and I absolutely, when I saw this little snippet, I thought, well, it really talks about how businesses can be. And, when we think about where are some of the businesses at, we always look at, we all want to be organisation A, but we sometimes can be in organisation B. And you know what? We can even be in a majority, 99% of the time, but we can fall back into organisation B through disruption. And really that disruption then, when it comes to the policies don't or haven't been updated, it's been so long, talking about disgruntled employees, whether they're not receiving feedback, or we've just become time poor and haven't had time to actually do that feedback session that we used to do when we used to be organisation A. And then talking about the recognition, because there's so many things that we're doing, we can tend to fall back on these and only direct staff to what needs to be done, whereas with organisation A, we were doing quite the opposite. We're supporting, we're talking about the performance, we're talking about future growth and planning. So really think hard about that one and where you want to actually sit. Obviously, we want to be at A, but how do we get you removed from organisation B and come to A?
I think one of the hardest parts is getting your business up there like an athlete. Or a football club, like the Collingwood Football Club, but staying up there is just as hard. So, good analogy, Maya. All right. So, for our people in the webinar today, what is a psychosocial hazard? Explain this in simple terms, please. Yep.
Yes. So we'll go into the
next slide.
Yeah, next slide. So really, it is about the health, the well-being, the processes that we go through on a daily basis. What are we doing as a business to improve? So, like I said, with organisation A, little snippet picture, that's where we want to be, and that's really how we can find the solution to what we're going to do. So really, in most states and territories, it's now become a practice that we need to look at. So they've got the code of practice that's in place, specifically about minimizing the physical, the mental, the risks that are associated with it, and not just about the physical risks that are generally at hand. It's now what's in the brain, how is that person feeling, what's their emotional well-being. So really, it's now an employer's problem to, if I've got situation and issues that are going on at home, how does that now affect bringing it into the workplace? So, and it's no longer, if someone's going through divorce, if someone's going through financials, it is now the talk of, I guess, the town. And then how does workers bring that to the workplace, and how is it your business as an employer or a manager?
Why is it their problem of the health and safety of a person? So obviously a physical injury, right? So if I could just explain this, and this is why I've got the two of us working here, is if I fall at work off a chair and break my arm, there's a physical injury, right? If I do it from home, I still, I fall off and break my arm off a motorbike, then basically, well, that's an incident that's actually happened at home, right? But with mental health and psychosocial, if something's happening at home and I come into work, is it because I've triggered or the company's triggered something to put them into a more depressed state? Is that what you're saying?
It could be part of the reason. Like, for example, let's just use that falling off the chair. Now, was I sitting there and in deja vu and really probably thinking about what's going on in my life versus doing my work, and then as a result fell? It could be all linked together.
Sure. Yep.
So there's things, and we'll go through that today. So we'll stay tuned for further information as we go through.
Because I just want to explain in simple terms, So, I know nothing's easy. Everything's complicated with this, right? But it's just trying to get your head around, well, how does it actually work? Maybe if you take us through this, the legislation, that'll help. Yep.
So obviously you can see on the left-hand side, we've got all the variations of, let's say, from a HR perspective and a business perspective, where we need to comply. And when we're talking about mental health, the psychosocial hazards, it also reflects to the bullying, the harassment, the discrimination. And especially now as we're going through Christmas season, there's going to have quite a lot of those potential issues that might arise, and it could be something as small as a comment that's being thrown at a Christmas party, as an example, that might trigger someone's emotional well-being.
Yep.
So in this instance, WorkSafe have got these amendments to the Act, and it's talking about the psychological hazards and the psychosocial hazards and risks that are associated with it. Now, as business owners and managers, the person conducting business undertakings is now primarily responsible. No different to your health and safety requirements.
Yep.
But now it's not just the physical risks; it's the mental and the psychological aspect of it. So specifically, it's talking about the employer's responsibilities to take care of that health and safety of that person in the workplace, but it's also now talking about, even though it used to be, even more specific about the discrimination, the respect at work, the Me Too movement, if you want to call it that, and then the sexual harassmentness. That all falls into the psychosocial hazard.
Yep. And as we know, and through other past webinars, there's been more change in the last 12, 18 months to legislation than it has been in the last 3 years combined, right?
Yes,
so small businesses especially, and large businesses, and any business have got to make sure that they're putting something in place to address this.
Yes. touching a little bit further on the respect at work, which is the next slide, this is where it talks about the sex discrimination amendment that's come out, which still plays that part of the psychosocial hazard and that risk. You're talking about the unlawful harassment, the compassionate requirements that fall part of it. It's no longer, you know, that person's unwell, it's sick leave. They've got the opportunity now to go for compassionate leave. It could be the way that the environment is, you know, it might be that everyone likes to pat each other on the behind, or they like to do stuff that's inappropriate, but in their culture and in their workplace, it's deemed as normal.
Yeah.
But then as a third party and as an outsider, they look at that and they say, oh, I'm not sure how that person feels about it, and potentially scared to talk about it.
I think the thing that we've got to address here is it's all about being professional.
Yes.
And if we say a bit of the old school, Wolf of Wall Street, all that sort of stuff, you can't do that of today,
Not
right?
at all.
And I think that's where the legislation now is really honing in. And if I use the word, you know, showing really no mercy on business owners who are not putting things in place that respects people at work.
Yes, that's
so,
right.
you know, if something happens, and what, you know, a lot of business owners, you know, that we know of our clients, they don't like confrontation. They see something, they don't act on it, and then all of a sudden something goes from bad to worse, and then it's out of control, and then a work cover claim comes in.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where we're trying to educate you about just the importance of talking about this at work and putting something in place, and making sure that if something does happen or that is inappropriate or whatever, that's addressed and squashed immediately.
Yeah, that's right. So in the next slide, I've just put some statistics here, really for understanding when it comes down to, you know, it's like I said, the psychosocial hazards comes to bullying, violence, aggression. I've got a blog coming out tomorrow talking about violence and aggression that affects the psychosocial hazards in the workplace. So it is all tied together, and how you as business owners, managers are viewing this now. It's no longer, oh, I'm just going to employ that person. And, you know, as the business is run, it's now you've really got to consider the facts and the thoughts that fall with it. So here, 1 in 3 women have a mental disorder claim of bullying and harassment. And then 1 in 5 men are also claiming for it. And then you've got there about almost 20% of workers say that they've experienced discomfort due to some sort of sexual humour, and so on. So you've got 22% of being physically assaulted and threatened by patients and clients. So you can see the mental stress claims. It's not only certain age groups, it's all age groups when it comes down to it.
And it's not okay. That's the bottom line. And I think the big thing, as we know, is our younger generation who we're employing, they understand this more so than the older generation.
Yes.
Yeah. And again, you know, we work with clients to try and rule that out, that, you know, it's all about mission, vision, values, the strategy of the business. I always say that when you've got good strategy and you've got good purpose and everyone's on the same page, and, you know, people doing meaningful work, and, you know, they've got some form of freedom and flexibility to go and do their job and do it really, really well, all this goes away.
That's
right.
Yes. And then in the next slide, it's just more about, again, more statistics in terms of mental health conditions. I mean, there's reports that are out there from WorkSafe that are there, and Safe Work as well. But 12,155 mental health claims happened over 22-21. Now, 23 statistics hasn't come out yet, but that just shows you how much it's growing in terms of that, and how much a potential claim could be up to $55,000 as an average.
And that's also in that date time, 20 to 21, that's prime of COVID too.
Yes.
So you can imagine the stress and discomfort. Yeah, I see lots of business owners go through, and then their staff go and ride that journey with them. So I just want to put it out there. When I actually sat through and did a course on this myself, I really asked myself my question, do I really want to have a business that employs people? But the reality is that it is about what I said before, is building a workplace that is great to come and work in. And this goes away. And again, it's that check-in. It's just having that understanding that, you know, May, you don't look good today, you're not looking well today, is everything okay? It's just those check-ins, you know, with your employees, just to make sure that that everything's okay.
And in terms of another one, this one was more specific on the Safe Work Australia website. Exposure to psychosocial hazards can cause psychological and physical injury. So I use that example of falling off the chair. I could have been in deja vu, rocking back, and then all of a sudden I've hit the back of my head just because I've been thinking about all the other things in my life that needs to happen. So they need to be treated no different to a physical injury and the risk.
Yep.
So you've got here on an average 7,984 compensation claims have come through and it's longer recovery times, higher costs. You know, someone could have even say like pain in the backside from the way that they incorrectly manually handled the box. Now that is because they were thinking of other things that led to a physical injury.
Yep.
I think there's some people that have raised their hands. Was there any specific questions?
Yeah, we can open up. Do you want to put your questions into the questions and answer? And or hang on, maybe we'll just whack it out. I'll unmute, and I've just got to work out how to do it. I'm the driver of this thing, so give me 1 sec. I think it's important that we allow people to. Here we go. So if I go Lena, allow to talk. Go on, Lena. Yes. Can you hear us all right? You got to unmute yourself.
Well, they're both through.
Sorry, that was just a hand up for the audio.
Okay, no worries. All right. Is that the same for you, Suzanne, as well? Just give me in the chat box a yes. All right, all good. No worries. All right, let's continue on. Yep.
Yeah. So the type of psychosocial hazard, then this is really getting into what we're going to get into today, is more about what is the psychosocial hazard. So it now could be work demands. It's more about, are they underworked? Are they overworked?
Yep.
We've got to look at what is in their control. So lower levels or control higher levels. So if they're, as I like to say, the bottom of the food chain, and they're asked and dictated to rather than giving them the opportunity to really I guess offer their ideas, offer their thought process in the business, that contributes to the psychosocial hazard of that person. Whether they're not getting enough inadequate support from management or the team members, you know, it's almost like I'm doing A to K of an alphabet, and then Colin, you're doing from L to O, and then there's no one's doing the other workload because we're a staff member down, and then all of a sudden person A is doing a lot more work than person B, and there is no person C. So then that also causes that stress, the thought process of that person to be, you know, overworked or under.
Yeah. And look, there are people that come to work that just want to go and do their 9-to-5 job.
Yeah.
They don't want to be managed. They just want to know what they're doing, and there's no dramas with that. And there are people out there that want to be a bit more challenged as well, and wanting to know, well, what can I do to improve and voice their opinion? Yes. It's about balance, having that right balance between you know, those two examples I gave, and that is all about leadership, how you address your team. Yep.
Then the role clarity, do they have position descriptions, or do they actually know what they're employed to do? They could come in and say it's the receptionist role. Now, we all think receptionist is a very simple and broad role, but actually that person is the caretaker of the business. They're your first thing that the customers see or hear, and what kind of clarity have you given that particular person as part of that role? Whether there's poor organizational change management. Now, considering, you know, it might be an understaffing situation, how do we get all staff and all hands on deck, but how are we communicating that with our staff members and our management team? Or is it communicated to one group and the other group's missing out? So why are we not having that common conversation as a business as a whole?
And sometimes, look, we've seen it, you know, we've got clients, and, you know, we've been through this ourselves. We've been understaffed. Yeah. And there's demands from our clients, and we don't want to let our clients down. So, you know, there is that, you know, process that I know that everyone will step up and do what they got to do. But as an owner, we've got to be checking in, making sure that they're all okay about it.
And how are we acknowledging, like, we know that those people are stepping up, but how are they actually, you know, that thought, and that's where the recognition and reward, something as a good high five, or even, you know, or just shout out to so and so for this day, this week, that month, you know, it depends on what it is. Like, just how do we have that conversation with them?
Oh, look, I know, just talking experience, I know that, especially yourself and Alison did some long hours a few months ago, so giving you some time off in lieu, so thank you, right? A wellbeing day that we did on Monday of last week. It's all part of the process of what we do, not suggesting you have to do that, but what we do to try and get that balance going. Because, when the phone rings, a customer is everything, and we expect our team to respond. Yes. That's what our customers want from us. That's what we do. But making sure that everything is everyone is going okay. Yes. And if things aren't going okay, it's about how you address the situation of giving people time off and stuff like that. So yeah.
And the next one, environmental conditions. So that's not just about is it sunny or is it windy in the business. It's more about how does that financial, what's going on out there. You can see from a business perspective, interest rates are going up. There's what's happening overseas. All of those that affects people in various ways.
It's right. That's right. Differently. Yep.
And then we look at the kind of risk that it impacts. So the psychological and the productivity impacts. So their mood might change. Their motivation might drop. They might be exhausted and burnt out. They might suffer from anxiety and depression. They don't know that they had it, and all of a sudden it's a symptom that they have. Suicidal thoughts, not even just suicidal thoughts, actually people doing stuff to themselves. And then what do you do as business managers and owners to deal with that situation? Increased absenteeism, so they might start calling in sick here, there. It might be today, here it might be a common, they might say half day is the day that I want to have off, so I'm going to just take it off and hope work doesn't see or remember that that's happening. They mightn't be less engaged in their role. It might affect the quality of their work, so they might just be doing the work just to have it got done rather than providing quality work.
And look, someone asked me at a previous conference where we actually ran this presentation at a conference a few weeks ago, well, how well do you get to know your staff? Well, again, part of leadership is, I don't want to know the ins and outs of what Maya does, but what's important to me is, where she lives, what she does for the weekend, what you and Taz do. Yeah. So I'm always checking in with my team, if they've got a pet or an animal or whatever it may be, I'll ask them that question. And I do it not because I have to do it. I do it because I want to do it, because I'm genuinely interested. Did you have a good weekend? Because if someone says to me, I've had a terrible weekend, then okay, for me, that's a trigger. Were you okay? Is everything okay? I'm always doing that check-in, as is Lorraine within the business. And that's just part of, I guess, building a great culture within the business.
And then you get to also feel and get an understanding what that potential week might look like. Even if that person has their own issues, well, that you probably know that that's going to be a wipeout week for that person. Yep.
And that's a question like you would sit back and go, do you need some help? Do you
need that time off?
Yes. Whatever it may be. Yep.
Yeah. Okay. And again, what kind of motivation can we give that person? Yep. I want to talk about now the next slide, which is more about the physical impact. So they might start having gut problems, digestive. They might start getting pimples. They might start having dry skin. And we're not beauticians here, but we actually start looking at the other physical signs of that particular person. Are they getting more tired eyes? How is their, what's their body experiencing from that perspective? They might be putting on weight. They might be losing weight. So all of those physical impacts, the muscles start, the joints pain, the headaches that person would get. So it's just looking at that whole entirety of that person. You might just look at someone and be like, oh, they look fine, but actually having a look at them is the other thing that you want to have a look at.
So as business owners, we care, right? We care, we want to look after staff. When we're recruiting, we've got to be very, very careful, because we can't ask, do you have any psychological problems or anything like that? But, we can certainly identify if there's maybe some red flags or something like that. And that comes back to the owner, the decision of what they want to do, or the manager, the decision what they do. But I think, just doing your due diligence, I think, is really, really important. And, when we're recruiting staff and with our existing employees, I always say, and this question was asked, well, do we get rid of them if they've got a problem? Well, I've openly spoke about, a person in my business who went through a divorce, had a mild stroke, had a throat cancer, and we could have got rid of him at a heartbeat, but he needed us just as much as I felt like I was his father, right? But then, when he come back to work, we got it back twofold in spades. So I think you got to sit back and look at, as an employer, am I an employer of choice? Am I a good employer? And I will do the right thing. I just got to understand how this psychosocial works. And then how do I create a real positive culture, a positive environment that people want to come to work and want to put in? If someone's not feeling too good, then they've got that support mechanism, not only from the owners, but from the rest of their team. Yes. When that happens, I don't see there's going to be, any big issues that you really need to worry about. So I hope that makes sense of what I just said, and feel free to put some questions in the question box or message anything in the chat you want us to talk about. So, okay, so your obligations as an employer, because we've talked about it and it's a bit airy, a bit scary, but so what are our obligations as an employer?
So we talk about positive duty, and if you do a lot of Googling or you hear a lot from WorkSafe, it's about positive duty. What are we doing to make that change? So we talked about, we've given you some examples now. I talk about organization versus organization B. The positive duty of organization, well, A, it is about educating, training the staff. What are the standards? What are the processes? What are we doing as a reinduction, even for those staff members that have been there for some time? I actually got PIN notices from WorkSafe for a new client of ours. And then I got another one for a client that we recently came up to us as well. And the biggest thing they talked about is, what are you doing for induction? What are you doing for the company policies and processes, and refreshing and reviewing 1 to 2 years. And if I ask the question even now, how many business owners and managers have done that? How often do you actually reinduct your staff? And you'd see that the percentage number is quite low. From that perspective, we want to make sure it's a safe and inclusive and respectful environment, and safe not just being safe from physical harm, but more emotional harm as well. So looking at surveys or ways to get feedback, whether it's a one-to-one, one too many is great, but you've got to be mindful of the kind of questions that you ask. That doesn't make people uncomfortable. So that might be as a version of a survey rather than a one-to-many face-to-face. But a one-to-one, like you and I having a chat about it, that is a great way to really get engrossed with that staff member. Look at providing flexible workplace arrangements and rosters. It might be a temporary arrangement, it might be a long-term arrangement, and it's okay to review that on a 3 or 6 month process. Or, ask, okay, I can't give you your full option, but I can give you a component of that option. And then make sure it's documented. And
that depends on the industry you are, because if you're in a retail business, your doors are advertised open from, whatever it is, 9 o'clock till 5 o'clock in trade. The staff have got to be there during that. They choose retail, that's what it is. Yes. But in an office environment or back office environment, well, that might be a little bit different. Yeah.
But also, even if it is in retail, maybe that person can go from a full-time role to a part-time role to accommodate. Absolutely. Work-life balance. So, making sure they're not working 80 hours a week. They're working the 38 if they're full-time. But if they're part-time, those hours that work for that person, what does this actual culture of a safety culture look like? And that's all about talking about, the mission, vision, values. What are we doing for our customers? What are we doing for our team and the workers? How do they handle queries that come through? And if there is complaints, what's the process? If there's customer issues, what is that process? And really treating each other with dignity and respect.
Some time ago, I read a white paper on emails, I can say that. So when I send an email, and I send an email from me to you, Maya, in my mind, I've cleared my mind, right? And then, and you receive the email and you might forward it on to somebody else or responded, then you've cleared your mind. How many times do we say to our clients that especially the new clients we pick up, stop emailing your staff at 10, 11 p.m. at night, because that is not positive duty.
And that gives them that anxiousness. They're having to respond. Do I respond to 11:58 p.m. And then it's like, oh, I'm almost in trouble thinking about it. And then there's the weekend that goes through, and then there's Monday morning, and they're like, oh, I didn't even have a restful weekend because I thought about that email.
Correct. Especially when it's in capital letters too. By the way, that does not help the situation.
No, it does not.
And we've had a client say, well, you know what? I give them a company laptop, or it's they don't need to turn that. They don't need to turn that on, but a lot of staff members put their company email addresses on their personal mobile.
Yes.
And again, that goes back to whether you allow
Yes.
that to happen or not. So you send something that's got question mark on it, then in their mind, they expect some sort of response.
Yes.
So all those famous WhatsApp groups, you know, that we see messages going out late at night. You need to do this, you need to do that, you need to do this. And again, it might work for majority of your team, but there might be that one person
That doesn't want to respond.
that just does not want to respond. Yeah.
Because it's not their work hours and so forth. So
Yeah.
I want to talk about the hazard identification part of it. So how do we actually look into it? So it's more about what we should be doing as employers. So looking at, you know, we talked about absenteeism and really, you know, I use that hump day example. So reviewing, okay, oh, I've noticed, you know, it's been a couple of weeks that, you know, person A's leave balance is becoming quite low because, you know, they've taken quite a number of time away. So, okay, what's the commonality? Is there anything that we can identify? It happens to be Wednesdays or every second Wednesday, or is it they might do it towards the end of the week to you know, they're feeling sick, so they have a longer weekend and stuff like that. Exit interviews, doesn't matter if the staff member has resigned or been terminated, or you know, there was a question that got asked before, the person's leaving because they're relocating somewhere else, and I said, well, you still kind of want to do an exit interview, whether it's not the full exit interview, but it's something to really get their feedback. And I did that with one of the staff members at one of the clients, and they actually gave the best valuable feedback, regardless if they were relocating to another state or you know, not it was too far for them to travel to work, but they actually hid by the real contents of why they were really leaving. Looking at your turnover, what kind of complaints are coming through, and educating them what to do if there's a complaint, what to do if there's an incident, and how do they put incident reports and hazards together. What kind of risk assessments do we do? You know, look at what's on the table as an example here. Is there any potential risk to another staff member? It's got to that point that we need to, I mean, I'm not saying you've got to look at absolutely everything, but really looking at, you know, what kind of information have you got on your desk? Is there private and confidential information?
I go back to what's professional.
Yes, absolutely. You know, what kind of injury claims have come through in the past? Review that. What do we need to use as that to improve systems of work? And a lot of what WorkSafe talks about is systems of work, understanding your policies, your procedures, your processes, and the physical workplace environment and the environmental conditions. You know, there's that person, I'm a staff member that's got a sore knee because I had an injury and I've got stairs to walk up. Is it physically possible for me to continually go up and down those stairs? What kind of arrangements do we need to give that person?
Interesting. How are we going so far? Give us some feedback, please. That'd be fantastic. Yeah. Risk management, mate.
So more about what do we do? So we want to implement some changes in the business. And a simple change might be to talk to our staff. Hey team, we're actually looking at making a couple of policy changes over the next couple of months. You know, come 2024, not 23, 24, we want to start implementing some new ways of working. And that's you consulting with the staff members to start minimizing the risk. And that's really giving them the opportunity to ask questions. Identify the risks and hazard in the workplace, and then assess the control. If we've identified, like, even it might be a minor change that we might need to move something slightly and have that conversation about it. And then sometimes workers won't actually tell you things. And this is probably the biggest thing that you'll find in your business. They might not tell you anything because they're scared of losing their job. They're scared that they're going to be victimized or isolated from whatever the process is happening. And also the other things is that they might be experiencing family or domestic violence issues, and that's not us even looking at the potential risks associated with it. It's more about the unseen factors.
It's all about their well-being, making sure that they're okay.
Yes.
I always talk about, you know, I've said this many times, Maya, but when a staff member goes home and their partner says, "How was your day today?" This is where this starts to really to come up, because if the partner says, "I've had a really good day today. I did this, this, and this, and this. Oh, my day was okay. You know, we got through the day. That's fine." But if a staff member says, "Oh, I had a manager who yelled at me," or another staff member who, you know, picked on me because of the shoes that I wore or whatever it may be, It's that other person that's saying, well, okay, number one,
Why aren't you doing, what are you doing about
what are
it?
you doing about it?
Yeah.
And number two, you know, why are you still there? Why don't you look for another job? And we know that turnover of staff is huge at the moment. We don't want turnover of staff. Every small business wants to get the right person on board and keep them. So we've got to make sure that we're doing that due diligence and making sure that we're doing what we need to do to create that positive workplace. Because when you've got a positive workplace, it's so much easier for people to work there, and it's so much easier to manage people too.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so if you take us to this next slide, Maya.
So I've put here about prevention. So it's more about, we're talking about the identification. So listen to workers. As Colin said, it's those small things. Like you could hear, how was your day? And then they say it was good, whatever happened. But then it's like really listening to what that actually says and what it means from that person's perspective. Look at the, you know, and then that's more about the person. Then we'll look at the workplace. Is there anything I need to change in my business? You know, we talked about, we want plans in the business to make us feel a little bit more, you know, homey. In that instance, we've got plants right behind us. You know, that was just that simple task that made such a change in every room. Gathering some more information from that particular person, whatever it is. Then we want to assess and consider what's the hazard or risk it might be. Again, what kind of plants are you allergic to might be a situation. But essentially, you know, I'm giving that as a very simple point, but there is other factors out there. You know, we're talking about the sit-stand desks are quite popular right now. Well, how does that actually work with somebody that's experiencing back pain? So what are we doing to assess and fix that situation? Conduct formal assessments, we've got there. Control, so how can we might not be able to remove the risk completely, but how do we minimize it and provide support? And I talk about the EAP services, especially from a mental health and well-being service perspective. We want to look at that, and it might just be as easy and simple as, you know, have you gone to your GP recently? Did you know that there's options to be able to get some care plans through your treating practitioner, and they might not be aware of those things. And then, you know, put a plan in place to prevent or minimize it again, and then review it. So you're constantly re-reviewing.
Yeah, that's it. I've just got a case study here of a young fellow that his best mate committed suicide, right? So his work was, I guess you could say, was falling behind a little bit. His care factor was sort of fell off the radar a little bit. But it wasn't until we had the conversation that it, you know, we just asked, "Are you okay?" And all of a sudden, a split second, it all came out like there's no tomorrow. So we offered him some time off, and he didn't want the time off because he felt the time off was worse for him. So he actually wanted to work.
Yes.
But it's just being that mindful, and then it's a series of check-ins. Are you okay? Are you okay? And yes, getting him that support and everything like that. So, you know,
it makes a world of a difference.
It does,
sometimes.
yeah. And this guy's a magnificent employee, but yeah, for some reason, you know, we just didn't understand. It wasn't one of our employees, one of our clients, but we didn't understand, you know, what was going on. But when we found out, and then once I think he got it out as well off his chest with his manager and the owner, and they all became on the same page of what he was going through. Like, he's an awesome employee now, but I think, you know, we was offered everything, you know, like some ERP, all the above. What do you need to do? He was already getting that anyway, because his parents wanted to make sure that he was okay, but it's just, yeah, it was all bottled up. So I think, again, you know, I'll go back to get to know your employees. Ask questions. You just got to sometimes ask questions without being too intrusive, but you'll pick it if somebody's not their normal self, if they're flat or they're down.
And it's sometimes the words, "Are you okay?" might trigger emotion.
Yeah.
Or it might just be, rather than asking that question, just say, you know, we talk about footy or talk about, you know, the sky is purple, no, it's blue. But those type of conversations will open debates, discussion, and then potentially that person will feel comfortable enough to talk to you about what's actually going on in their personal.
And you've got to pick the place. Yeah, you've got to pick the place where you have the conversation as well.
And making sure it's private and confidential. So we're talking about simple steps that you can implement. So here, and it's no different if anyone's worked with us specifically would know, we always talk about this, and we harp on it in our 12-step HR best practice plan. It's talk to your staff and conduct wellbeing check-ins. So whether you're doing them daily, weekly, fortnightly, you know, we understand that people can be time poor, but what is it? It might be a 30-second, we call it the water cooler conversation. That's all of 5 to 10 second conversation. But then it could be that 15-minute check-in, or it might be a half an hour, or are you doing it as part of the review process? There's all these different variations to it that we can actually look at. Plus their work design, do they have enough work, not enough? They might have not enough phone calls to make if it's a salesperson, or that they're struggling because they have to all of a sudden figure out where they're going to get sales from, and they know the market's quite dry at the moment. So looking at that, what's their role look like? What's position description? Their KPIs? Have we given them realistic targets? You know, we talk about 3 times the investment of that person, but then 3 times in a thriving business, absolutely. But if we're just making break even, like how do we help them contribute? What are we doing to support them in that? What kind of culture and strategy are we putting in place? As Colin said at the start of the session today. What are the health and safety control measures that we've put in place as well? And then resetting the expectations with the staff member, and really saying, okay, if you're having any issues, please feel free to come and talk to me, and be that person for that time being until you figure out, okay, our next plan is this, you know, we're going to appoint a particular person for it. And the biggest one is obviously documenting, right? We'd always say if it's not written down, it didn't happen. And it's really about what are the processes, the softwares that we're using to document it, to make sure that it's written down.
I think also too, you know, I wrote a blog about, you know, brainstorming with your team and stuff like that. All of that creates positive impact, you know, like, we've got a problem, you know, let's do a case study, or what can we do to fix it? All of that sort of stuff is healthy for a business to keep people's mind focused. I think one of the things we've got to be careful of, and you know, I'm very what's the word? I understand where people are sitting, where they're sitting at the other end of this webinar going, oh, you know, this is really interesting. But you know, if you can keep I just keep focusing on keep the business moving. I think, you know, I always talk about you need to teach staff more about business acumen today,
Absolutely.
more so than ever before, because, you know, like, you know, the business has still got it. It's your customers that pay your wages. We've got to make sure that we've got the output. We're doing what we need to do to keep this business healthy. Otherwise, we won't have a business. I think there needs to be a bit more education around that, and focusing on what drives the business and what makes the business successful and how they are part of that process, rather than, and I guess, you know, the psychosocial and the mental health is, you know, we can't just go and, you know, what's the word, put a person down or be abusive or anything like that. Still can be direct and firm,
yes,
if it's fair, but you know, I don't want people thinking, oh, you know, I've got to work on eggshells or anything like that. No, you build a business like a well-oiled machine and keep the focus on what the business needs to do to survive. We've actually got a really good statement here from Deborah. It sounds like we need to ensure we have a process to identify psychosocial, psychological issues during an incident investigation, as it may also be a contributing factor leading to an incident. That is so true.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, if you are doing an investigation or performance management to that person, it is, you know, I'll talk about, is there anything else that they would like to add? Is there anything that we should consider as part of that investigation, or our processes, or even if it's through consultation because there's a workplace change? Why is that person potentially objecting to it? So, you know, I mean, we talked about vaccinations for a long time. You know,
that was stressful.
So many years ago, let's call it that. But how did that affect that person's reasoning? Why? What's the experience that they've had? What's that, you know, when we're looking at that whole entirety, what are the reasons for those potential objections that come with it?
All right, so let's go into some motivations. Yeah, I think we've done enough. You're getting into the obligations and procedural. Yeah, so let's talk about motivations. Yep.
So we're massive on team building exercise and social events. You know, whether some people want to use afterward drinks, some people want to have a barbecue in the, you know, especially production workers. I've seen quite a lot of them either, you know, they have fish and chips on a Friday or whatever it is. They might have pizzas, you know, sandwiches. They do that as a gathering opportunity, and it's a nice, you know, appreciation from a business perspective. Looking at empowering the team and trusting the work you do. So if you say, and I use the production example, if someone's building me a box, right, I want to know that I'm giving you that particular task to do. I know 99.9% of that will be done. meticulously because I've given that trust and the ability to that particular person to do that role. Looking at an environment to encourage them to speak up. So, you know, we're always talking about, and in our teams especially, because I start talking about psychosocial hazards and it's something that we talk about hot topic, people do speak up more so because it's now common language in our business. Training your managers and leaders to understand their workloads, understand what they can do with the workers, you know, and it might be just taking someone for a coffee to talk about that workload. It's outside of that. You know, I'm a big believer in, if you're having a conversation with that staff member in your office, and you know they know that they always come into your office and they get in trouble, right? The next time the situation of that, they would think about, okay, well, that causes me the stress going into Colin's office, for example. If you take that person to have a discussion outside of the norm, they will remember the conversation and they will generally tend to improve because they remember that because they were outside of the comfort and situation.
It's about the experience.
Yes. Looking at ways of employing workers with great talent, we've done, you know, it used to be we would want them to have certain criteria in the box, but they lacked personality. Right, even for our clients, but we found that this person was so great, and I've done it a couple of times with some of our clients. Is I said, okay, we've got this particular staff applicant that's come through. Someone needs to employ them because they're brilliant in terms of conversating. How do they didn't fit specifically here, but they might.
Skills.
They've got some great talent. The resilience in the team, how did we build that? What are we doing to empower, give them the opportunity that, you know, everyone knows hands on deck, and it's about the appreciation, recognition. We talk about profiling, so understanding each other's personalities, surveys, cultural surveys, group sessions. We've got so many that are around. The Are You Okay Day, the Mental Health Week. What's the one that we recently, the Biggest Morning Tea. There's something so simple that we can do, and everyone can bake something, and it's a topic of conversation for some time. And then talking about the EAP services as well. So we talk about culture.
Yep.
I think we harp on about it all day, every day.
All day, every day. Yep.
And we're talking about supporting them in early intervention about incidents and hazards. Talking about training and resources. So you might be doing a simple course online, which is for free, and there's a lot of free courses out there. Get them to, like I said, speak to someone that they might be comfortable with, and being okay to speak to that person and not repercussions because they spoke to that person. Responding positively to their health issues. Okay, they're not doing so well. What kind of things are we doing to support them? Maybe we can't completely give them all that support, but still supporting ways in, okay, can we help you? Whether do you need some, you know, someone might not be able to drive to those particular sessions or can't afford it. What can we help them do? Promote a respectful workplace. We want to make sure we lead by example and celebrate differences.
I think the other thing too as well, because we get a lot of calls saying, well, I've got a staff member in a situation here. You know, if I do this, if I allow this person to go and do this, what are the other staff members going to say? And that might disrupt the culture. Yeah. So that's a common question that comes through. You know, the answer to that is it's how you actually deliver that to the rest of the team. And, you know, and sometimes is that a thought process? You think, well, maybe if this person's feeling that way, should I offer it to everyone else? It really comes back to, I always ask as the employee that, you know, that I don't lay awake at night worried about any one of my team members. So, you know, I ask that question to a lot of business owners. Yeah, I worry about this person, this person, this person. Well, okay, are they the right fit for your business is what I'll say.
And the last one there, don't be a bystander, call it out. So if you see something that's not acceptable, actually say something. We've got whistleblower policies out there. We have the grievance process. Like, absolutely, it's your whether you're an employer or a manager to speak about things that you're not accepting.
Okay, so it's not just your obligation as an employer. So I'm sure a lot of people are glad to see this slide.
Yes.
So yes, take us through this, please.
So from an employee perspective, we're talking about what do they do for their own self.
Yep.
So, you love reading books and you love relaxing. So that's your relaxation perspective. But looking at that staff member needs to look after them. Do they go for walks? Do they eat healthy? Do they have goals for themselves? Do they have the holiday planned, and are they excited for that? Because there's always everyone always wants to look forward to something. What kind of work-life balance are we promoting? How are they accepting it? We're saying, well, we don't expect you to work back as long as your work is done. We don't want you to work back, but essentially if they're saying, no, I've got too much work to do, then they need to speak up about it. Talking to someone about any of the issues that they're having, whether it's personal or professional. Them being open-minded about their experiences and talking about how they're feeling. Actually, if they don't want to participate in activities, how do we put an activity that helps them actually come into it? So we might know that someone's quite an introvert and doesn't really want to participate in certain activities. How do we actually create one of those sessions for them, but also them to participate into those? How are they eating? How are they sleeping? Are they playing games until all nights of the day and then coming to work? Then real life face-to-face connections. We've got some clients that are only virtual between the teams, and it's important about what kind of things are they doing to stay connected, participating in training, and then consulting with the doctor or health professional if they need help. And then there's a couple of numbers that are out there for advice and support. You
can't tell somebody what to do in their private life, but you can certainly guide them down a path of living healthy and working healthy, I think is a big thing.
We want to talk about the schedules. So realistically looking at the workload and their schedules, minimizing the pressure of long hours, assessing their workload, looking at the task and are they able to do it safely, acknowledge the workers with their ability to cope to change, taking breaks, like everyone's entitled to tea breaks, lunch breaks, take them, invest in the tools and machinery that will help them do their job as well.
Yeah, I think that's really, really important. Is that encouragement of doing something? Okay, this dealing with violence and harassment. So
yes, this is again, as I mentioned, one of the hot topics that are coming through is about what are we doing to educate them on how to deal with the policies and procedures. What grievance process have you got in place? Dealing with the environments, the situation, and I'll talk about the bullying, harassment, sexual harassment, equal opportunity. Those policies need to not only be there, but they need to be educated on what to do.
Policy is only a document. At the end of the day, it's behaviour is what we need to make sure that everyone's following that. And what's really bad is you discipline somebody for their behaviour and not discipline this person over here because of their behaviour. It's got to be fair and equal from everyone.
Yes, absolutely. So other things that you could do is educate the workers on the leave process and policy so they can follow it. What to do if they're experiencing family and domestic violence, because we know that that's also quite serious now. And promote quality over the quantity of work, as long as they're getting through the day for that period of time. But how do we get them to fix their overall situation? And then also review workplace setups. I've just put in there more about the employee assistance program, and it's speaking to the direct manager or ask one of us if we can help and support you. But as simple as getting general practitioners advice under Medicare, there's got those services as well.
And look, I think it's important, you as an owner, if you think somebody's not going so well, you could ask them, for a certificate of clearance.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, so how to comply with these changes in your business?
So talk about the induction, the workplace policies. Again, I speak a lot about this. The setting the standards and what to do, as we said, enforce those if the unacceptable behaviors and discipline for that. And again, we talk about not really disciplining. We want to make the change of the culture so we don't have to discipline. Create a space where they are comfortable to speak up, zero tolerance on bullying or harassment, training and awareness training that we've got in terms of that, making sure that they understand the complaints procedures, and make sure your managers and supervisors are across it. They need to be you can't have employees and then the owners and then the managers not really following what's going on. They really need to be your key integral part of your business.
One company, one team. I think, look, we're going into Christmas now. So for everyone's on this webinar, I just want to say thank you, because we know what's going to happen with alcohol, Christmas parties, people cut loose a little bit. And with these new laws, it's going to be, there's going to be a few businesses that are in trouble.
Yes, and that's why we talk about policies, the procedures, the processes. And that's why I said, as part of your risk management, making sure that you've got those in place.
Yep, and even just highlighting that before the Christmas party,
Yep.
code of conduct. We want to make sure everyone has a good time. We want to make sure people look after ourselves, and and you look out for each other as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I've put an email out for one of our clients for their Christmas party. I was like, here's all the nice stuff and here's the fluffy stuff at the bottom, but the integral part of it is about code of conduct, the drugs and alcohol policy, the health and safety policies. They're all of the things that you want to look in place, which are examples that I've put here.
Yep.
So they're the type of things that you really want to encourage.
Yep, these policies that you got up here in front of us.
And then the effectiveness of those policies, it's more about the limiting the liability to the employers. We're setting those clear expectations. We've given the standards. There's no point of giving a papered version of a standard if it doesn't comply with the day-to-day standards as well. And then avoiding having disgruntled employee because there's processes that they follow, and minimizing that they say that I've never got the email.
Yeah, make sure that you're just very clear with this is how it is. Yep.
Now, with those, if people say they don't have time to read them and they can't read, there is a feature that's on Microsoft 365 that reads it out loud for them, so they can definitely not say that they couldn't read or they couldn't understand it.
But you can't. An airplane won't take off until they've done their evacuation. Their
procedures. That's right.
Yep.
So the difference between the best practice and the mandatory is one set by the law and the minimum legal requirements, and then the other one's about limiting and reducing your liability. And then in terms of procedures, we want to make sure that you've got processes. I always call it like the Bible. What's the business Bible? Making sure that you've got those things that are in place.
And people know what process is.
That's right.
Go. Yeah.
And in terms of the next slide, which is the grievance process, it's about having a person to go to, having a process to do if they are having those particular issues.
One of the things we always talk about is the emotion. So, if it's got high emotion, then you just need to be very, very careful around that. Yeah.
And I've just given some examples. There's a written grievance, verbal. There's people that can be anonymous. That could be done by one to many people. And then in terms of what does management then do to process. And sometimes they'll say, oh, I'm just whinging. I always say, yeah, would you like me to do something about it? Or are you actually asking me, or are you just telling me just because you want to get it off your chest?
Do you want me to document? Yeah. Still put a note on it though.
Yes.
I'll definitely agree with that. So the importance of record keeping. So, what we recommend a product called Enable HR, and it's a big compliance tool. We love it. Our team, we encourage this from, just about every client that wants to work with us, because it's a great way of having everything all in one system. So, a staff member's file you can print off the whole life cycle of your business in about 3 seconds.
Yes.
So should the unlikely event never happens to you, like work cover claim or a bullying harassment claim comes in,
download.
You've got all that record keeping. And if anyone wants a demonstration for that, then just contact us and one of our team members will be more than happy to demonstrate. But why do we document, Maya?
Yeah, so as a best practice, absolutely, we encourage, as I said, if it's not written down, it didn't happen. There's no, and if Fair Work asks you, where is, what can you give us your version of events? Well, if we don't have it, even in a diary, like I say to somebody, that's always late, document, so-and-so is supposed to start at 7 o'clock and they came at 7:13. Just put the initials in there and the number, and then that way it triggers you. It's not a full note, it's something that you've put in place. Professional organizations and businesses providing clear understandings, what's happened, what's the process that happened, that they can have asked for their employment record. Tell me when you verbally spoke to me about it, where's it written down, minimizing any future risks. And like we said, having that record at your fingertips is really important.
I think we spoke about induction at the start of this presentation, but for anyone's dealt with us, anyone's worked with us, one of the big things is we're very big on induction, because their first day needs to be their best day. And why do we document? From a compliance thing, you need to do it. But I've just put on a staff member and I want to show that I'm a professional employer of choice. We've got all this in place and it shows our professionalism. So they know, hey, I'm in the right place. Because, for time and time again, when a company is disorganized and someone's just left one company to go to another company and they go, well, this company is more disorganized than the company that I've left, then, what happens is, unfortunately, you might lose some of those staff members. Okay, so if you need support, Maya's got this document is very, very well for your, information, which we encourage, to have on hand if you've got a staff member that's not going so well. So, do we have any questions based on our webinar? And more importantly, I hope you've enjoyed our webinar, and we've been we've given you some really good tips and insight of how it all works. We're here to support. So while you're putting some questions in, we're here to support with anything that you need in your organisation to go from good to great. Pretty much how it is. And we've got some free downloads, so feel free to download, anything off our website, because it's there as a resource. That's the way that we do things, and we're more than happy to support your business. So do we have any questions? Someone's got to give us a couple of quick questions. I'll think about a couple of questions. It was, I had a question that was asked that, I've got rid of a staff member, because, they weren't 100%, committed to the actual business, but they'd been with the business for like 5 years. So I said, well, what were they like for the other 4.5 years of, they were fantastic. So what's gone wrong? What is it that's gone wrong? What's changed? What's changed within their life, or what's changed within your business? And, that person, you've got rid of the staff member, but, these things happen. I understand that, but what could they have done to try and hung on to that, I talk about the IP, the intellectual property that person would have had within that business.
Well, I use that example specifically, like, okay, we've got that situation where it might be that they did something, you do projects all the time, whether it's you look at your sales figures, whether you've done a project, let's just say you delivered a house, right? We've got some builders that are out there, and then what did they do to have a look at the next version of improvements? No different to your staff member. What did we do to fail them? What did we do that we didn't maybe provide enough support? And sometimes we provided whatever support we can give them. It might have just been possibly pairing them up with in a different situation. Maybe they've got an inability, as I like to call it, that they didn't wish to tell you, or we didn't wish to find out more information. But those are some of the things that we could have potentially saved that particular person.
It's hard, but I hope thank you. I hope we've got a message here. So thank you for a really informative session. You're both obviously highly skilled and professional in this field. We love what we do. I'm more Maya's the professional in this, but for me, I jump on this webinar because we just see it time and time again. Companies with good direction, good vision, good values, that are always upbeat about the business, no matter how hard things become. They tend to retain their employees, have less trouble, and it's going great. And then we've got clients who've on board with us where it's a bit of a toxic environment, and it's he said this, she said that, this manager's not leading, and it takes a little while to sort that out. And all this does is now enhances just more, I say it enhances more problems if you don't get your business on track. That's what I want to say. Like, you might have a good business, but is it a great business? I think as we go into 2024, we've all got to have this mindset. Do I have a great business? Do I have a great team? Do we have great products, great services? Do we have great customers? Are we getting the Google reviews? All of that is what, to me, is very, very important.
And even the plan, what's your business plan? Like, where do you see your future growth of your business? Where do you see that person in your business?
That's right. And just get them along the way. So thank you very much for a great webinar. And I want to wish you a wonderful week ahead. and enjoy the week. And if you've got any questions, please give us a buzz, reach out to us. We're here to help, and we hope you enjoyed that webinar. And if you really loved it, then give us a 5-star Google review. That'd be really handy. Thank you very much, everyone.
See you.
Enjoy.
Bye.
Thanks, Maya.